Willkommen, bienvenue, and welcome back to Opus Magnum with Lyte. And today we're looking at Timing Crystal. This one, it's a bit weird because of its internal structure and just how massive it is. So we'll look at a cheap solution first. And we call this one Hook because, well, it just boings back and forth. Back and forth and back and forth like a spring. And so if we speed it up, boing, 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 back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it uses an arm, 2 pieces of track, and a binder. It's all it takes to get the job done. Now, there is a very, very, very slim chance that you could do this with just an arm. It's hard for me to imagine because you have to pull things from 2 different directions, you need to shift things back and forth, and even if you do manage it, it'll take most of the rest of your life for it to finish, but it might be possible. So if you out there at home have a 30G solution, I think we'd all like to see it, because going through all of the pain and heartache of trying to make it work, probably not for us. But you can share those down in the comment section over on Twitter or in my Discord. Links down in the doobly-doo. And so here we are with our 40G solution. 30 seems a bit outlandish. Might be possible. I don't really know. But 40 is really quite good. And some people might start off with trying to do this with a piston, and pretty much anytime you have a piston, you can do it with an arm and a track. Piston would make it a lot easier because there would be a lot less shifting around. You grab the middle and you just spin it and spin it and spin it and everything's fine. And we'll actually use that idea for some of the other things that we do, particularly working with size. And as always, I like to go for the size and the cost first and then the speed second. Although this one is a little bit different in that respect because it was harder to get the area down than it was the speed. C'est la vie. So we move on to Saw. Because, well, it's a big old blade-looking thing, and as you build it, you spin it around, and then once you get to the very end, you spin it some more. And so you get a rather saw blade-looking effect. Now, this is a very straightforward way of constructing it. The gold never moves. You just spin it around, and everything's fine. The only real difficulty is that with something this size, with the length 3 sticking out, when you spin it, it juts out just the tiniest little bit over these 2 hexes, and pretty much every 2 hexes between the vertices. So you've got these 2 down here, these 2 up here, and then these 2 over here that end up being used despite not being useful. So if you were able to make it not spin, you'd be able to save between 4 and 6 hexes, which seems really great. Except trying to make it not spin seems just as unlikely as the 30G solution. If you can manage it, more power to you. There's just so many things that you can't let it do when you're trying to do it without spinning it. And so with a bond in this direction, if we try to just push it across, we'll end up with not only a bond here, but also a bond here. And there's no space for slicing those. There's just no room. So getting rid of the rotation does not really seem like the best way of reducing the size. However, there isn't really a good reason to leave the gold where it is. Because it can just as easily sit 1 to the right. Because you have to put 2 of these bonds in a row. We can use this same bonder both for this one and for that one without any serious difficulties. So that's what my next solution does. It overlaps more into the exit, and it looks pretty nice with this little arrow going on here. And because of the rotation effect, we still use these 2 hexes, these 2 hexes, and these 2 hexes. Probably these two as well down here. And so moving this salt through these two hexes doesn't actually use more than we would otherwise due to the spinning. And so as it builds builds the center first, and then it pushes it further away, and then spins the next bit. And still has that saw blade bit at the end. And so you can see, yeah, we add these two, these two, these two, and this one to our solution, which still seems like you might be able to do better. So if you have an area less than 40 or a cost less than 40, they're both really quite fantastic solutions, because 40 is as low as I was able to get it. Now, you might be wondering, why don't you just move the salt closer? Well, if we put it in either of these hexes, it will collide with the product as it's spinning. And that's just no good. You can't have collisions. It's fundamental to the whole kit and caboodle. So we can't place it in any of the spaces adjacent to where the thing itself is being spun. So the only other thing that you might be able to figure out is if there was some way to have it spin even closer. Get rid of another layer of these. And instead of having it spin right here, somehow have it spin from out here. But then where are you binding things? How is the binding even happening? So right here, you can still do the binding. Any further in, and you just don't have enough overlap. Because if you did the binding out here, you would still need to pull it out to be able to do that, and you'd end up using these hexes anyway. So the question becomes, well, maybe you spin it closer in, such that you only use these two and these two, but you don't end up using these or those. That might have some merit. If you can reach. And there lies the problem. Because to be able to have it here for the spinning, you would need to be able to have your piston here, and that breaks your binding setup. So what do you do then? Well, then it's just a cascading effect of, do you approach it from the side? Do you build it some other way? So it might be possible to reduce this size by, let's say maybe 3. You might be able to get it down to 37. If you're able to approach it from a different angle and rotate it here instead of here. And that's a big ol' maybe, because this thing is a beast. You never really know what you're getting into, but you need to be able to rotate it here and then shift it back and out again. Because you can't put the binders here because they'll bind internal things that you don't want. And so if you've got the time, I might eventually have the time, you might be able to get this down to 38 or 37. But that's the best I could possibly hope for out of this one. We might come back to that if we have a little time after the speedy part, because the speedy part is really quite simple. We construct each of these 3 salt pieces, attach it on, and spin it. That's all there is to it. We spin it a little extra there to get it all finished up. But that leads to a problem. If you watch the salts carefully, they stop for a little bit. And that's just no good. You can't have any stop in production. That adds a little bit to every product that we make, and when you multiply any sort of lag like that by 6, you lose quite a few cycles. So what do? Where's the problem? Well, the problem is in that extra little twist at the end where we can't be producing anything new while it's spinning. Well, that's a simple enough fix. If you're doing something that is delaying things, move it out of the way. And so we're doing the same thing over here that we did before. It's the same 3 salt pattern, building the thing, and then we move it away. And by moving it away, we can bring the gold in. We can keep building with the rest of the salt. And you've got yourself a nice little product. So the question is this optimal? Well, let's take a look. You always work your way to the last thing that you create. So that's one thing, that's two things. Now we're going to watch the third thing. We grab it. 1, 2, drop. Ooh. Is that all we need? 1, 2, drop? Well, let's look at all of the things that are in this product. I suppose we can look at it over here. So, what things could we add last? Well, you kind of have to add the outside last. You certainly can't add the gold last. That's a nightmare. And it's got 6 bonds. No way. These internal things, they've got bonds in a straight line. That takes at least 2 bonds. You cannot bond in a straight line in one move. Okay, these guys out here, same problem. Straight line means takes 2 bonds. And here we've got 3 in this configuration. If it were in a flattened tetrahedron sort of position, you can do that all at once. But as this stands, no way. That takes at least 2 bonds. Which means that, well, our solution here, where we go grab, bond, bond, dump, is as good as you're going to do, so long as the salt is being produced consistently the whole time, and it is. So this 219, it's as good as you're going to do, so that top percentile is solid. Top percentile for cost, not quite so much. Top percentile for area, certainly not. And we kind of feel like we might be able to do even better on the area, so let's give it a try. So in overlap, we've got it set up like this. Let's make a copy of that, see what we can do. So our goal is to be able to hold it here, which means, we'll need to have this arm down here. We're going to need to be able to shift it directly to the side. So we're likely to need this track here. Okay. We're going to be spinning it over here. So we don't really need to worry about our salt or gold positions. At least not too badly. So we can move these to here and say here. And that should be fine. Yeah? Okay. Now we take all of these instructions and we delete them because none of them are any good anymore. There's probably a way to select them all and delete them all, but if there is, and I knew about it, I have forgotten it again. Oh, right, you just delete the arm and then put it back in. Always forget. Okay, I like having it on the salt because then I can just do basic resets. But you have to keep an eye on it to make sure it doesn't go out of bounds. Okay, so what we do is we go we go plus, rotate to the left. Nope, that's no good either. We're just going to rotate to the right 4 times. Because we don't want to go through this hex. We don't need this hex. So we rotate all the way around to grab the gold. We bring it all the way back, move to the plus, push out 2, and reset. So that should lead us to having gold here and the salt here. Good. Now we grab the salt, rotate right, push it out twice. We don't necessarily want to reset yet. No, we want to drop it, move to the plus, grab, rotate, reset. Now that should leave us with the gold and the salt 1 over. And then we just take this and we copy it. We have 3 of them. 4. I said 4 of them. 5 of them. And then 6 of them. Now, after the 6th, we do not need to rotate again. But we do need to take that gold And actually, no. We need to keep holding on to that salt and just shift it over one. So there we go. Oh, that was not quite right, was it? Oh, right, because it's in the wrong position here. So, no bueno. How do we avoid that? We can shift this out of the way for that last one. So for that last one, instead of doing that, we drop it in place. We pull one, -1, grab it, shift it over. Reset, grab, right, push, push, drop. Then we move over, pull, grab, and then shift back, and that should attach it as we originally planned. And this will be similar to what we do for the rest of it with the shifting back and forth. And then we shift it back once more. Reset. Grab, right, push, push. Then we'll shift that to the right. Yes, because we're going to rotate it here. Now the problem becomes we're going to need to attach it here, but I think I've got a decent plan for that. So let's see what we get, just to be certain that we're on the right track. Brilliant. Because now we can drop it, shift that way, turn that way, grab it, and rotate it. And so now it should be facing up here. Okay. Now we reset, we grab a thing, rotate right, push, push, shift, reset, grab, right, push, push. And now we've got two salts bonded right here. We rotate it that way, such that they are right here. And we drop them. We've got a thing right around here. Do we have a way of bringing it back? Of course. We move over here, grab it right here, and shift it back. So where are we currently? We are currently right here. So we move to the right, we hit plus, we grab, we shift. So we now have it all bonded together. And from there, we shift it back. We drop it, shift, grab, rotate. And we should be ready for the next one. And there we are, ready for the next one. So we hit reset, and then we grab from here and duplicate this over. This should now give us 2 segments. Brilliant. And then 3 segments, 4 segments, 5 segments, 6 whole segments. Now let's watch that last one, because it might be different. Here's hoping it's not. Ah, and now we have ourselves a little dilemma. How do we make this last bit work? So we have rotated it too far to be able to work with it the way we have it. So let's delete that last cycle. And let's bring it to here. And see what we've got. See if we can fill in that last little gap. We could actually put it in there right now. If we put this salt right here, it'll snap in right there. And then we just need to rotate it and bring it back. So, stop that. We reset here. Grab, right push, drop. Then we turn to the right, push out, shift, grab, unshift, shift, drop, unshift, grab, rotate, drop, shift, grab, unshift. And that should be all together. And there we are. We have a completed timing crystal. We just need to get it back into position. So if we get it to here, we have shifted it back. We're probably holding the far edge. We'll need to shift it to one more. Just one additional space. So we drop, minus, grab, plus, reset. And we have made our 36 area solution. Now, is it the 36 we meant? No. This should only be 35, I think. No, it should mirror here and there. So that is accurate. Yep, 36 is what we were going for. 36 is what we got. So we're going to run it a few more times such that you can see exactly what it does. But by changing where things are and how we shift, we managed to save quite a bit on this one. Got it down significantly below what I thought was possible. And each time I looked at it, I was like, I think this is as good as it's going to be. No, it's not quite there. Because that 45 was what I originally recorded. I was like, oh no, I got to re-record it. Because I thought of a way of getting the 40. And then while doing this episode, I was like, no, even the 40 doesn't feel quite right. And here we are with our 36. And it's hard to imagine any way of shrinking this even further. But again, I've been wrong before. Speaking of which, on this 36, I was wrong about the 40. And so just a little bit of persistence, a little bit of identifying where something just isn't quite as good as it could be. And you manage to shave off a couple here, a couple there. Before you know it, you've got a solution you didn't even think was possible. But I think that's plenty for this episode. Ran a little bit long because of this last solution, but I think it was well worth it. Don't you? But either way, I will see you in the next episode of Opus Magnum with Lyte.